Harvey Bennett played 13 seasons in the American Hockey League, becoming one of the best goaltenders of his era, as well as a mainstay in his community. The Saskatchewan native was a second-team All-Star in his first AHL campaign, winning 34 games for the Calder Cup champion Hershey Bears in 1947. But in joining the Providence Reds that off-season, Bennett began a lifelong connection to Rhode Island.
I saw him when goalies were really goalies, no masks and pads, sensible size. This was at Madison Square Garden in the early 40s. He was playing for the Boston Olympics before he even went to Providence. He was so outstanding because he'd do almost perfect split, and that Boston Olympics team was one of the best teams that I've ever seen in hockey. Of course, Harvey went on to the American Hockey League, 12 seasons playing for the Providence Reds, won 3 Calder Cups. He did well by the American Hockey League. He did well by Providence, and it's so appropriate. He was like Mr. Providence Hockey. Congratulations to the Bennett family.
Bennett would go on to play more games and register more wins than any goaltender in Reds franchise history. He led all AHL goalies in wins 3 years in a row, setting a league record with 43 victories in 1948-49 and guiding the Reds to a Calder Cup title. By the time his playing career ended, Bennett had appeared in 540 AHL games and won 260 of them, numbers that still rank 4th all time.
First of all, he was one of the pure stand-up goaltenders. He was not a flopper. And he was really, really terrific on breakaways, one-on-one. I consider the Bennett family probably the hockey family of Rhode Island.
The legacy of Harvey Bennett and his family, including 5 sons who went on to play professional hockey, extended into the local community, where Harvey was a passionate promoter of youth hockey and the founder of a pro shop, which is still run by the family today.
Harvey Bennett passed away in 2004. It is a privilege today to invite Harry Sinden from the Boston Bruins to present Harvey's son, former National Hockey League player Curt Bennett, with his father's AHL Hall of Fame Crystal Award signifying induction into the AHL Hall of Fame.
Don't want to read the wrong speech here. I've got 2 or 3. First of all, I can't see anybody out there, but I assumed this would be a small room with a few people. When I first heard about Jimmy telling me you were going to give the acceptance speech. But I see this has been a great event, and I wish my dad were alive here to see it. I'd like to thank the American Hockey League and the Providence Bruins for honoring my dad. This award also gives his sons and grandchildren, we have here in the front, sorry about that, a better chance to understand the man who gave our entire family the gift of hockey. Steve Jobs said, "We're here to put a dent in the universe." Well, when you talk about dents, hockey people are happy. I want to tell you a little bit about my dad's dent. As you can see, he was born in Saskatchewan, or he's born in Eddington, Saskatchewan in 1925. And his mom was a single parent. She was 5 foot tall, 200 pounds. And my dad said could give a good body check if they misbehaved. She raised 5 kids, 3 boys and 2 girls in Regina, where hockey was the rite of passage. Dad said they used to lug 55-gallon drums of water to pour on the fields to make the to make their skating rink. And as our mom told us, your dad used to walk through 3 feet of snow to deliver the paper. And if it was really cold, at night you fell out of bed and you broke your pajamas. They had cold winters there, I guess, but we just love hearing those stories, because we grew up here in Rhode Island, and, the weather just doesn't stay cold enough to go in the ponds. And we just wished we had that same kind of weather. And when we did, we'd all skip school and go skate in the ponds. And that was with my parents looking the other way. They didn't mind us doing that. Dad's mom died when he was only 12. That's difficult for anyone, but it must have been especially for a little 12-year-old boy. Now, with no parents, without parental guidance, you have to rely on yourself to figure things out, to grow yourself up. Dad focused his energies on hockey. He was small, so they stuck him in the net. You stayed in the net until they scored on you, he said. And sometimes that would be as long as 12 hours. His sister Vi told me he'd plead with us to come and watch him play. That little guy, freezing so long in that goal, we'd bring him something warm to drink. His determination didn't go unnoticed, and at 16, he was recruited by the Oshawa Generals, the junior A team, to leave Regina and come to Oshawa, all the way across country. Most of us take it for granted when our parents will be there yelling at our Pee-wee, Bantam, and hockey school teams. They can be overbearing, as you know, but they are there, and with their love and support. He had no parents by then, so at 16, he had only his own determination and self-belief to kind of get him through hockey's ups and downs. I think of that many times when I was playing, and the many times I would be discouraged by hockey. He was the one who seemed to know how I could overcome my adversity. Why? Because he had to do it himself. He had to believe when no one else did. But he had a positive view on adversity. Every knock's a boost, he used to say. As hockey players know, goaltending is a lonely position. A forward will make a mistake and the coach will know it. A defenseman, a rowdy fan would notice. Bennett, you bum. Kind of makes me nostalgic there. That was a familiar refrain. But when a goalie makes a mistake, they stop the game, they turn on the red light behind them, sirens blow, and everyone points at the puck. And the ref kind of sheepishly gets in there and takes it out, kind of says, loser. A goalie can't survive if he has self-doubts. He had fond memories, as we mentioned on the screen, of winning Memorial Cup. That's the Stanley Cup of junior hockey. He then played for the Bruins, the Olympics, Hershey, and finally 13 years here in Providence. 17 years. My NHL career was 10, and that was probably 4 years too long, especially if you talk my old coach, my coach in Atlanta, Boom Boom Jeffrion. He used to say, never mind those big college words. He said, just shoot the puck. There's only 3 things you got to do. You got to shoot and you got to skate. It wasn't really the content that Boomer kind of persuaded, but it was similar to my dad. It was kind of the passion that you needed. And a goalie just can't survive if he doesn't have that, if he has self-doubts. My mom, I'll have to mention her because my mom was as equally helpful to my dad. She was the whole time. My dad and my 4 brothers all played professional hockey, but it was really my mom who was our role model. She was loving and kind, and she could beat up all the other moms. My dad used to hit us in the head, said, you got to be hungry to be a hockey player. My mom was wiser. She'd use child psychology. If we weren't playing well, she'd deprive us of something we really wanted, like food. Coach used to say, Curt, you're looking kind of thin. I said, I know, I haven't scored in 5 games. But Dad and Mom, they dug their roots here in Providence. He used to pitch fast pitch softball, and he was the only guy in the league that he didn't wear a glove, which I always wondered about that because he's a goalie, he catches with a glove, but maybe he just thought, softball and pucks are hard, you didn't need a glove. And my mom said one time that someone hit a line drive back to him, and he kicked it with his leg rather than fielding it right to the first baseman, kind of a goalie thing. I learned my storytelling from my mom. He retired in 1959, as they mentioned. I think I was 11. Johnny was 9. I think Harvey was 7, Billy was 5, and I think Jimmy was 1. So we didn't really get a chance to see him play that much. But we know his Hall of Fame goalie career determined the hockey careers of all of us. He raised all 5 boys who all went on to play professionally. The 6th, Peter, died tragically falling through the ice at Roger Williams Park playing hockey. And I know that if Peter had survived, he too probably would have played professional hockey. And that's because the common denominator in all of us was my dad. He was a game changer. He was pure Canadian, but his story is as American as Mark Twain's or Yogi Berra's. And he became naturalized after 5 years. In his day, the schedule was only 60 games, and that included the playoffs. And you can imagine the equipment. The trainer was the backup. There was one goalie. No mask, heavy, flimsy equipment, and a macho Canadian ethic that said, you played injured or not. I remember him telling me one time that he had a tooth injury and he was bleeding all day. And after the game, the doctor told him to start drinking more beer to keep his blood pressure up. He told me when I was 12 years old. I think he really didn't want me to get into the hard stuff. In my era, there was a steak in every beer, kind of Gordie Howe, a slap shot. It was, if you ask anyone about era, they'll tell you that. They probably drink bottled water now, but it's a different age, different time. What I guess I want to stress, and I have an opportunity to talk here now, is that his sons and his grandchildren are the beneficiaries of his hockey career. And more importantly, we are fortunate that his journey forged the man that he became. He had to figure things out on his own. His self-reliance, his attitude to change your game, cut the Gordian knot, find a solution, believe in yourself when no one else does, to outwit your opponent. This is what he learned and what he drummed into us. If things aren't going your way, don't get down on yourself. Do something different. Put a snowshoe on. Wear your pants backwards, but change the game. Sometimes you have to take the leap and grow your wings on the way down. Grow your wings on the way down. These stubborn, hard-earned traits are what got this 12-year-old orphan from Regina a career as an AHL Hall of Famer. He was also a consummate salesman. He could talk a dog off a meat counter. Well, he sold himself into believing that he could play. But more important, he was able to tell us that we could play. Because the only difference between us and many others who never really made the grade and had more or equal talent was my dad. It was him inculcating a belief that we could succeed. This gift to us put a dent in our universes. Henry Ford said, "My best friend is the one who brings out the best in me." On behalf of my family, congratulations, Dad, Hall of Fame hockey player, father, and best friend. Thank you.